Embark on your civil services journey with Vision IS. Introducing the Delhi GS Foundation Course 2026, turning UPSC dreams into reality. Access interactive learning tools, animations, videos, and an immersive interface. Utilize our tech-enabled student portal for performance tracking and personalized feedback. Stay ahead with daily assignments, weekly mini-tests, and monthly revisions. Strengthen your preparation with expert-researched, UPSC pattern study material. Delhi General Studies Foundation Course 2026. Batches start 29th November, 5 p.m., Karol Bagh. 19th November, 9 a.m., Karol Bagh. Take the first step towards success. With Vision IS, success is just a step away.
So good afternoon again. So we are going to discuss two themes today, and one is what you call as the conquest by the company, that is establishment of the British power in India, right? And second is economic impact of the Britishers, right? So we'll try to see that how we can approach these two themes from the perspective of the UPSC exam. So I prepared a handout which will be uploaded for you, right? The session will be more based on discussion. At times we'll use the board also to clarify certain concepts. So first of all, let us understand the meaning of this thing, that establishment of British power in India. What does it exactly means? It technically means that it is establishment over power over state, which rules the territory and the people of India. So state, it is basically defined as the organization that does what? That rules. It rules two things. The first is country and second is people / nation. The states which are established by people, they are called nation state. For example, in the Constitution of India preamble, it is mentioned, we the people of India give ourselves this constitution. And what is the purpose of any constitution? The primary purpose of any constitution is basically to create the state structure and define the functions, responsibilities, powers of each of the sub-organization of this particular larger organization. Okay, so that's why it is known as nation state. Similarly, there can be a phrase called military state. Military state means an organization which rules a territory and its people, and that organization has been set up with the help of a military victory, and it stays in power till the point of time a military defeat comes in, right? So all the states which were there on our land before 1950, they were actually all military states. They were established with the help of military victory, and they stayed in power, in control over territory and people till the point of time a military defeat came, right? So therefore, nation state, military state. So what kind of state? And books, they do use this word called company state. So in India, when empire building was done by the British, which British did empire building? It was actually East India Company or English East India Company, which got its royal charter on 31st of December 1600. That was ultimately able to establish itself as a state. So therefore, in India, there was establishment of company state from the time period of 1757 Battle of Plassey till your 1857, and after that, that state was destroyed, and the British state, that is, which rules the territory of Britain, it established its own state through the Government of India Act of 1858, right? And therefore the company state was replaced by the British state's state in India, and we became part of British Empire legally on what you call as in 1858, because that is what happened actually, right? So first of all, we should know that what we are studying establishment of company state, and we are going to do it until 1858, because after 1858, as such, direct territory was not brought under the rule of the British. So anything, खैर मतलब जो second aspect है, it is basically rule. What do you mean by the word rule, right? Rule basically means ability to make laws, ability to implement those laws, and during making of laws and policy and during implementation of laws and policy, if by chance there are any disputes which arise, then to adjudicate those disputes, which you call legislative, executive, judiciary. This is the work of any state. In the modern times, we have separate sub-organizations to do this work. A separate legislature, a separate executive, a separate judiciary, right? But in the previous times, there was something called monarchy, monarchy. Archy means power. Mono, it means one, right? Absolute concentration of legislative power, executive power, and judicial power only in one sub-organization or only one organization, right? So therefore, fine, that is monarchy. Similarly, in Government of India Act 1919, there is a word called diarchy. Di means two, archy means power, right? So therefore, from that particular perspective, try to think about these things, right? So here, this is the modern thing, right? That is making laws, executive, and this work is to be done where? Making laws or policies, implementing laws or policy, and resolving disputes which arise out of it. You do it in each subject. In each subject which are there in the 7th schedule of the Constitution of India, the central list of subjects, the state list of subjects, and the concurrent list of subjects. These words which are there, each subject, it is also known by another word called sovereign function. Sovereign function. What do you mean by function? Function simply means work. Sovereign function or work. So what is sovereign function? Actually, the work of state which is an organization that has the job to rule a country and its people, उसका जो काम होता है उसको कहते हैं sovereign functions. And these sovereign functions can be categorized, they can be organized either horizontally or they can be organized vertically. So when they are organized vertically, that is what you call federalism. That some work will be done by the center, some work will be done by provincial governments, provincial legislatures, provincial judiciary, right? So that is nothing but federalism. So vertical organization of this work, it is called federalism, right? And horizontal organization of this work by functional organization is called separation of power. Separation of power में आप क्या करते हैं? जैसे separation of power में आप type of work को divide करते हैं. Subject एक ही रहेगा, but you will divide the type of work, nature of work. जैसे किचन है, तो किचन में मल्टीपल काम होते हैं. बर्तन खरीदना एक काम होता है, खाना बनाना एक काम होता है, किचन की सफाई करना एक अलग काम होता है. तो ओवरऑल सब्जेक्ट इज किचन, फूड, बट उसमें टाइप ऑफ वर्क अलग अलग हो सकते हैं ना. सो दैट इज लाइक हॉरिजॉन्टल डिवीजन इज ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ टाइप ऑफ वर्क इन ईच सब्जेक्ट, एंड सब्जेक्ट देमसेल्व्स आर वर्टिकली डिवाइडेड बिटवीन सेंटर एंड provinces. जैसे हमारी फैमिली में once you start earning, right, so therefore if the subject is economics of the household, right, so once you also start earning, so therefore there can be vertical division of work, right? So some expenditure on certain things will be done by you, expenditure on certain things can be done by your father, है ना. ऐसा वर्टिकल हॉरिजॉन्टल है ये बस. अदरवाइज यहीं से सब कुछ निकलता है. सेपरेशन ऑफ पावर ऑल्सो कम्स आउट फ्रॉम दिस, फेडरलिज्म ऑल्सो कम्स आउट फ्रॉम दिस, डायरकी, मोनार्की, एवरीथिंग एक्चुअली कम्स आउट फ्रॉम दिस. लाइक a basic thing which is there, right? So that is the meaning of the word rule, right? So basically state is an organization that makes laws, implement them, and adjudicate the disputes over a particular country. Country means territory, land, and its people. That's why the word countryside means rural areas, side wale areas, rural areas, right? Right. So therefore, that is the major thing. So how this company, which was set up now, which are private organizations? Private organizations are such organizations which are not created with the purposes of establishing control over territory and people. They have private motive, that is profit motive, profit of the shareholders, right? So how a company which was set up for profit motive became such an organization which is of the nature of state. Private organization is different kind of organization. State is a different kind of organization. So when a private organization established state over territory of India, that is called as company state. That is called as company state. So therefore that is actually what we are studying. So this is the basic thing which is there. So it is very weird that how a company is able to establish power over India, right? Apart from this, ठीक है ना, तो हाँ, conquest by East India Company, ठीक है. So basically around 1750s, when the empire building by the company began, the territory of India was ruled by different regional powers. Like Marathas were there, Jats were there, right? Rohillas were there, okay? Mysore was there, so many people were there. But then the books, they also mention that Britishers, they never questioned, or the company, it never questioned the symbolic sovereignty, the sovereignty of Mughal emperor until 1858. This sentence which is there in every subject, that leads to confusion, right? That how company is doing annexations, and at the same time the book is saying that company never challenged the sovereignty over India. So they contradictory ho gaya. So there comes, if I elaborate, what do you mean by sovereignty? Yes. So sovereignty is actually can be subdivided into three types. One is symbolic sovereignty. Symbolic sovereignty does not give you any power. It is just that it gives you status. The person who is having symbolic sovereignty may also have actual power, right? Like in the case of absolute monarchy, where the monarch or the king is extremely powerful. So there, like Aurangzeb 5807, 1658 to 1707 also had symbolic sovereignty, and he also had actual powers, right? In the present time, for example, President of India has symbolic sovereignty over Republic of India, but he is powerless. That means he does not have any actual power. In the case of Britain, the constitutional written constitution is not there, so therefore limited monarchy it is there. That means the king does not have any powers, right? But he is his photo will be there on the coin, right? He is the symbolic head of the state, right? So therefore symbolic sovereignty, it is always with head of state. State is an organization that rules a territory and the people. So therefore who is the mukhiya of that particular state, that particular person is called to be having symbolic sovereignty as head of state. And under it, the other sovereign functions which are there are external sovereign functions, and domestic sovereign functions. External sovereign functions and domestic sovereign functions. External sovereign functions are actually, that is when a state talks to other states, right? They are external sovereign functions. While talking, there can be some disputes which arise. A, try to resolve those disputes by talking. B, fight war. Those issues which cannot be resolved through diplomacy are resolved by war. And war was legal until 1928. It was the Paris Pact of 1928 which declared that following war as a tool of foreign policy, it is illegal. That is, don't use war as a tool to resolve your disputes, use diplomacy. And war should be like the last resort, and there also you should have enough grounds, you should not be aggressor, right? That kind of, right? That's how the terms war crimes, etc. come in. So they are what you call as defense. Second is communications. And third is foreign affairs. Defense, communication, and foreign affairs. Foreign affairs is S. Jaishankar. Defense is Rajnath Singh ji. Communication is also from that particular perspective Rajnath Singh ji, or it can be divided. Without communication, there cannot be any defense. Example, without railways, you cannot move your armies from one place to another. Without ability to comprehend or without ability to tap into secret information or secret communications of your enemy, you may not be able to win a war. For example, Alan Turing during the World War II was able to decipher the secret communications of Germany, and that became a very, very important reason for the Britishers to defeat, or the Allied powers to defeat the Germans. Right? So communications is, until unless you have control over sea lanes of communication, your military navy cannot do any work. Right? So therefore the communication is actually Dalhousie 1848 to 1856. In 1853 he introduced railways, and the primary purpose of introducing railways was faster movement of army from one place to another. So communications cannot be detached from defense. So defense communications, they are like together. So defense communication, foreign affairs, these are the external sovereign functions, and rest of the like home, finance, domestic infrastructure, social infrastructure in the form of health, education, etc., etc., etc. They are all actually what you call as domestic sovereign functions, right? Some interesting fact about polity: federalism is only about vertical division of domestic sovereign functions. In federalism, the external sovereign functions are never given to any province. You would never hear that any province of India is having its own army, that any province of India is having its own foreign minister, right? So therefore external sovereign functions are not vertically divided between center and provinces. It is only domestic sovereign functions which are divided vertically between center and provinces. So the issue of federalism, it arises only here, right? When all of these domestic sovereign functions are given to a province, but this is not given to the province, this is not given to province, that is called Article 370. Right? That is called Article 370. So when Article 370 was there, so this is a very basic kind of structure which is relevant not just for polity, but it is also extremely relevant for understanding history or our present day topic of establishment of company state. So therefore until 1858 this was never taken from the Mughal emperor. This was never taken from the Mughal emperor. But yes, over different territories, these things were taken over from rest of the regional states of India. Right? So therefore that is how it is taken. So that's the basic theme which is there. Now we come to our topic of discussion, and this is essential to understand this. That's why we talked about this. So therefore UPSC in 2022 asked, why did the armies of British East India Company or English East India Company, right? Technically it was English East India Company, mostly comprising of Indian soldiers, win consistently against the more numerous and better equipped armies of the Indian rulers. Right? Now, you will not be able to understand this question until unless you know that who were the Indian rulers. Right? So by 1750s, what was the situation? By 1750s, the Mughal emperor controlled only a small area around Delhi and Agra. He had the symbolic sovereignty, but otherwise there were regional states which are there. Regional states means such states which ruled small territories and its people. Right? So regional states. So books, they try to confuse us when they use the word regional powers. Actually what they mean is regional states. The topic is not decline of Mughals when we begin our syllabus. Topic is decline of Mughal state. Right? Topic is not rise of regional powers. Topic is rise of regional states. Right? So you choose a particular dictionary which is legal dictionary and you continue to follow it. Don't mess with it, otherwise your understanding will get weakened. Okay? So regional states, they were actually of three kinds. One were what you call as successor states. What do you mean by successor states? Such organizations which were established by certain family members of the Mughal state. Here family is not blood based family. Here family simply means organizational families, means some of the senior employees of the Mughal state. They started telling Mughal emperor that in the region of Bengal, in the region of Awadh, in the region of Hyderabad, you will not have control over, you will not have actual power over external sovereign functions and domestic sovereign functions. Fine, your photo we will keep on sikkahs. Right? So therefore these people, these senior employees, they are basically successors, and the states which they set up in Bengal, Awadh and Hyderabad are called regional states. Right? Or successor states. Right? So like India is a nation state. Why? Because We the people of India give ourselves this constitution. This is a successor state because it was these successors who set up these states, right? So Murshid Quli Khan was there in Bengal. In Awadh there was Sadat Khan, and Nizam was there in Hyderabad. So these three territories and its people were ruled by these three successor states. Then there were rebel states. Look at the word. Those states which are set up over a particular territory by fighting against the Mughal state, they are called rebel state. That means they took away territory from under the control of Mughal emperor and established their own state here, right? In many of the cases, they accepted the symbolic sovereignty of Mughal, but external sovereign functions and domestic sovereign functions here were not under Mughal emperor. So these rebel states were Marathas. So Chhatrapati Shivaji never accepted even symbolic sovereignty of Mughal emperor. Later on, Shahu, who was there from 1719 onwards, he accepted symbolic sovereignty of Mughal emperor not because of any weakness, but because he wanted influence even outside of Maratha empire, right? Marathas were there. Sikh, they never accepted symbolic sovereignty also. So technically, Punjab was not part of what you call as Mughal empire after Maharaja Ranjit Singh in 1801 became Maharaja. Then Jats were there. Jats did accept symbolic sovereignty of Mughal, Jat kingdom of Bharatpur. Then two Afghan kingdoms were there. They are called Farrukhabad. East of Delhi, it was very small kingdom. They also accepted the symbolic sovereignty of Farrukh Siyar. That's why the name Farrukhabad. 1713 to 1719, Farrukh Siyar was there. Rohilkhand, Rohilla Afghans, they also accepted symbolic sovereignty. Rohilkhand is basically parts of Uttarakhand today, right? Bareilly used to be the capital, Uttarakhand and thoda sa niche. So Rohilkhand, it was also established around the time period of 1738, right? So the year for this is 1737-38. The year for this is 1713 के आसपास में. The year for this is like 1695. The year for this is 1801. The year for this is 1674 if I go by law. The year for this is 1722, 1724. Right? So therefore roughly, you don't have to remember the years, but roughly you notice that even during the time period of Aurangzeb, different kind of regional powers had started rising. 1695. Right? So that means the decline of the Mughal state had begun by the end of 1600s. Right? The chronology, it tells you clearly. And as soon as Aurangzeb goes out of the scene from 1707, you notice that very soon, 1717, 1722, 1724, right? 1713, 1737, right? So very soon regional states, they started coming up. So what do you mean by company state? Company state will establish its own territory by taking away territory from these, by fighting wars against these. And that's why the issue of wars fought by the companies, Anglo-Maratha wars, Anglo-Mysore wars. Then third kind of states were already autonomous states. Already autonomous states means that even when Mughal state was extremely powerful, even then they did not control external sovereign functions and domestic sovereign functions over these territories. In the case of Rajputs, Rajputs accepted symbolic sovereignty of Mughal state, but external sovereign functions and domestic sovereign functions were with the Rajputs only. Mysore, that is present day Karnataka, at one point of time it did accept symbolic sovereignty of Mughal state, although Tipu Sultan, that is 1782 till 99, he did declare independence legally. That is, he also wanted symbolic sovereignty to be with him only. But yes, at one point of time, Mysore did accept symbolic sovereignty of Mughal emperor. And third was Travancore. Because of geography, the present day Kerala was never ever under the Mughal empire. That is, neither symbolic sovereignty of Mughal emperor was here ever, nor Mughal emperor ever had any control over domestic or external sovereign functions here. Right? That is how you study if you want to study methodically, you have a clear definition of legal terms, and then you try to understand whatever the topic is in line with that legal definition. So if you have noticed, I first created a legal definition, and then I'm always highlighting or explaining things on the basis of that particular definition, right? So therefore this helps you in structured preparation, and English is a language which uses a lot of synonyms, right? So that we are not lost in synonyms, and we know through which structure, through which law are we studying this particular subject. So therefore we don't get confused, right? Decline of Mughals, rise of regional powers, right? एक चीज इस्तेमाल करो, whatever defines something legally, use that for clarity, right? So therefore establishment of company state will take place if territories which are there under these different states are taken over by company either through diplomacy or through war, which are external sovereign functions, right? मतलब कंपनी अपना स्टेट बनाएगी, उसके बाद फिर किसी और से बात करे तो ये सब चीजें मिलेंगी, ठीक है ना? तो जब तक बच्चे को ये नहीं पता होगा तो उसे यही नहीं पता कि क्वेश्चन क्या है. Why? Because what was the question? The question was this: why did armies of British East India Company win consistently against more numerous and better equipped armies of Indian rulers? Rulers, S. So who were these Indian rulers? I just told you who are these Indian rulers, right? So therefore a student who does not know who are the Indian rulers, so how can that student answer this question? Okay, so some background knowledge it is required. Then the second question comes: why did the armies of British East India Company, why are they using the word armies? Why they are not saying why did British East India Company Army, ARMY versus ARMIES, armies? Law is very, very important. Each and every word is very, very important. It also has a different meaning, right? And I will give you a thing. EIC had multiple armies. Two kind of armies EIC had. Which army? No. Yes. So one army was, ध्यान से सुनना, one army was owned by the company. Why? Because money for its creation and maintenance was also coming from the company. This is EIC Army 1.0. But there were other armies which were owned by the Indian ruler, because money for that came from Indian ruler, but it was, money was given as subsidy to the company and maintained therefore by company. So two kind of armies are there in East India Company. Two kind of armies. If I talk about EIC armies, so one is EIC Army 1.0, second is EIC Army 2.0. Both armies were maintained by means recruiting soldiers, training them, actually doing the work of purchase. I'm not talking about money, source of money, but the work, going to the market and purchasing something, that work, maintained by. This was also maintained by East India Company, and this was also maintained by East India Company. So military commanders will be East India Company only. However, if you say paid for by, and therefore जो पैसा देता है वो चीज उसी की होती है, right? When you pay for something, it is yours, you own it, right? So paid for by, therefore owned by. Paid for by, therefore owned by. Here EIC, but here Indian ruler or Indian state. And as a result, there were multiple armies. So the EIC army, which is being maintained by East India Company, but for Awadh, the uniform of its soldier would be like, uniform is there, right? And here the flag of Awadh will be there, and here the flag of East India Company will be there, right? Commanders will be all British, But since the money is already paid for certain things, so therefore it is yours. When you order pizza from Domino's, pizza is yours. But who prepared the pizza? Domino's. But who it is to be eaten by? You. Why? Because you paid for it. So you are the owner of pizza now. Right? So there is a difference between who is the maintainer and who is the owner. Right? So that's why there were multiple armies which were there. EIC Army 1.0 and 2.0. That's why the word armies. Right? But the whole point is, because in subordinate alliance or subsidy alliance, foreign policy, external sovereign functions were taken over. In subordinate alliance, external sovereign functions were taken over by company. That means defense, communication, foreign affairs of an Indian state were taken over by company. Therefore, where this army will be used, it was decided by not the Indian ruler, but the company. Right? So Awadh has not started any war with Afghanistan, but because company has power over external sovereign functions of Awadh. So if company fights a war with Afghanistan, let's say 1838-42 First Anglo-Afghan War, then Awadh army, this army of Awadh will also be used, because foreign policy decision is now no more with the Indian ruler. Right? So therefore, where this army will be used, how this army will be used, right? So imagine that the situation is like this. Imagine that you purchase a pizza from Domino's, and Domino's has power to decide who will eat this pizza and when and how. That is kind of like the status which is there. So that's why the word armies. So therefore, now we truly understand the question, right? And with the purpose of this question, I'm also trying to explain you the basic concepts which are behind this particular topic, right? So 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 what were the reasons? First reason were a logic. देखिए, if someone is able to capture territory, क्या चीजें हो सकती हैं? A, we are weak. B, the enemy is strong. Bas, simple. Why life should be very complex? Now let us elaborate. So what were the weaknesses of the Indian rulers? Lack of strong central power, means lack of such a state which rules whole territory of India and its people. Had such a state been present, then disunity will not be there. But when regional states are present, so disunity was there, and this disunity was made use of by the Britishers. Right? For example, Mysore versus Marathas versus Hyderabad. It was a three-way contest. कोई किसी का दोस्त नहीं था. In most of the Anglo-Mysore wars, Hyderabad and Marathas, they were fighting on the side of East India Company against Mysore. Right? So disunity is there. Why? Because multiple states are there. Right? Had there been only one single state, then disunity would not have been there, and alone East India Company would not have had the confidence, military confidence, to take on this big state, because big state has big bank account. Big bank account means big army. Big army means no aukat of East India Company to ever think of targeting this state. Right? So first of all, we were not having a strong central power in India. Second, rivalries of Indian rulers, as I just hinted to you, right? There can be further more examples, right? One kind of rivalry of Indian rulers is can be called like factionalism. Okay, so in 1802, Holkar of Indore fought, defeated Peshwa and removed him from Peshwaship. Therefore, in 1802, Peshwa Bajirao II was there. He went to the Britishers. They told him that we will help you regain Peshwaship if you sign subordinate alliance or subsidiary alliance. That means your external sovereign functions will be with us, and an EIC army will be stationed. We will maintain your army. The selfish Peshwa Bajirao II, he said yes, done. Right? To see if rivalries were not there between Holkar and Peshwa, then this situation would not have risen. Right? ठीक है ना? Another example of rivalries of Indian rulers, as I gave you the example of Marathas versus Mysore versus Hyderabad. So from 1780 till 82, because of Nana Fadnavis, who was like the key power center in Maharashtra, there was an alliance for these 2 years between Hyderabad, Mysore, and Marathas, right? And Britishers, they were very, very weak at this point of time because of this alliance, right? That is why actually they signed Treaty of Salbai 1782 with the Marathas to end their, war, first Anglo-Maratha war, and they started, they gave whatever Hyderabad wanted, right? Hyderabad wanted a small territory called Guntur, right? So Guntur was given to Hyderabad कि भाई नाराज मत हो. Treaty of Salbai was signed with Marathas कि भाई नाराज मत हो. Let us come together and fight against Tipu. 1782. What was happening? 1780-84. Second Anglo-Mysore war was taking place. In that war, for the first 2 years, Indian players were on one side, but from 1782 till 84, there was disunity, right? So therefore, had that disunity not been there, probably East India Company would not have had the confidence to fight against Mysore, right? And see what East India Company did. East India Company in 1798, it is signing subsidy alliance with Hyderabad. Why Hyderabad is signing subsidy alliance in 1798? Because it had fear that I will be militarily defeated. My state will be militarily defeated by Maratha state or by the Mysore state. This is another example of rivalries of Indian rulers, meaning subordinate alliance would not have been signed by Hyderabad had this rivalry not been there. And therefore one of the Indian state, one of the successor state would not have lost its army, would not have become a puppet of East India Company, right? Then in 1799, with the help of Hyderabad and Marathas, East India Company defeated Mysore. Fourth Anglo-Mysore War, 1798-99. And now, within 4 years, in 1802, when Peshwa went to East India Company, ideally East India Company should have said, "Yeah, this is your internal matter. You are my friends since 1782, Treaty of Salbai." But no, they interfered, signed subordinate alliance with Peshwa, right? And then began Second Anglo-Maratha War, 1803-05, whereby a lot of territory of Sindhya was taken. Plus Sindhya was also made to sign subsidy lines. And after that, because it became, East India Company became the major power, it also made Jats, Rohillas, Bundelas, Rajputs to sign subordinate alliance. That is subsidy alliance, right? Because I'm the new Chaudhary of this area. So therefore, earlier you were paying Chauth and Sardeshmukhi to Marathas. I'm the new boss. And well, my method is signing subordinate alliance, right? So had we not been divided, ये सब चीजें नहीं होती, right? Third element is weaker technology and military reforms. There's this Battle of Adair, 1746, which you study as part of First Carnatic War, 1746-48. What is the importance of that battle? The key importance, कोई territory lose नहीं हुई, कुछ नहीं हुआ. The only one result of that battle was, it was proven that now European infantry can defeat Indian cavalry. Usually infantry is weak because infantry is on foot. The person who is on the horse, he is the person who has height, speed, and therefore strong. Mughal army was dominated by horsemen. What was the savar of Mansabdar? Number of horsemen, which every Mansabdar had to maintain. So Mughal army was dominated by horsemen, right? ये पहली बार हुआ that such gun technology is there with infantry that they can defeat cavalry. And you know how many? 700 French नहीं थे वो, French trained Indian sepoys. Look at the question. Question also highlights it is not about racism. mostly comprising of Indian soldiers. Mostly comprising of Indian soldiers. यहाँ पे सोल्जर्स इंडियन ही थे, तो वो आपको इनडायरेक्टली बोल रहा है कि तू मुझे बता सब्सिडी लाइंस के बारे में, डेफिनेटली देना आंसर में कुछ ना कुछ, क्योंकि मैं तेरे को और कितना इनडायरेक्टली बताऊं. आर्मीज, आर्मी नहीं बोला, आर्मीज बोला, फिर बोला मोस्टली कंप्राइजिंग ऑफ इंडियन सोल्जर्स. मतलब तुमसे वो बिल्कुल लिटरली पूछ रहा है कि प्लीज टेल मी अबाउट सबऑर्डिनेट अलायंस आल्सो इन दिस आंसर, है ना ऐसा. तो कह रहे 700 फ्रेंच ट्रेन्ड इंडियन सिपाहीज डिफीटेड 10,000 horsemen of Carnatic. 700 versus 10,000, right? So therefore it was the European technology and European organization of military which was not that great. Indians, we did try to learn. Hyder Ali 1761-82 reorganized his military with the help of the French. From Chhatrapati Shivaji's time, Marathas were also talking with French, taking the help of the French to reorganize their military. Maharaja Ranjit Singh 1801-39 also reorganized his military on the European model. Maharaja Surajmal 1756-63 Jat King, he also had Europeans in his army. He also took help of Europeans to reorganize their military. Why Europeans will help? Because they are here in India for money. You give them money, they will help. The primary purpose was not to establish empire in India, right? So we were outward looking. ऐसा नहीं था that we were totally archaic, but yes, edge was there with the Britishers, right? Because they will not give their key technology, and otherwise also France is weaker and Britain is stronger. And usually in the books you notice that you were taking help of French. Why French were helping us? Because French wanted trade of India and their competitor was British. But British were relatively fine, better. Right. Then strength of the East India Company. One strength is diplomacy, second strength is military, and third strength is economic strength. Without money you cannot win any war. Huge amount of war expenditure takes place. Diplomacy, for example, look at diplomacy. Policy of ring fence. The meaning of the word policy of ring fence is that you sign military alliance with some Indian state, right? So as a result, what you are doing, you are basically ensuring that you are also Indian ruler, you are also Indian ruler. When I take over his territory, you will not support him. Why? Because I have a military alliance with you. In fact, maybe you will help me. So Britishers, they never had the auqat to fight all the Indian states together. And the pattern is why so many wars we have to study as students. Because in simple terms, they defeated us one by one by one by one by one. They never fought all of us together. When they had to fight some of us also together, परेशानी में आ जाते थे. 1780-82 Hyderabad, Mysore, Marathas were together. They identified that out of Mysore, out of Hyderabad, out of Marathas, who is biggest danger at this point of time for me, at this point of time? Mysore. So therefore I signed Treaty of Salbai with Marathas. I gave Guntur back to Hyderabad, dealt with Mysore. One by one by one. 1798 Hyderabad, 1799 Mysore, 1803-05 Marathas. Right? So therefore the whole utility of policy of ring fence is that you don't have to, you are basically preventing an alliance between Indian powers. Why? Because you are entering into military alliance with one of the Indian ruler. 1765 Treaty of Allahabad, military alliance with Awadh. 1769 Treaty of Madras, after first Anglo-Mysore War, Treaty of Madras. Military alliance which ultimately failed, but fine. Military alliance with Mysore. Right? 1782 Treaty of Salbai, military alliance with Marathas. 1809 military alliance with Maharaja Ranjit Singh. 1801-39, Maharaja Ranjit Singh, Treaty of Amritsar, military alliance with Maharaja Ranjit Singh, right? So therefore you notice that they are basically ensuring that these powers, they do not fight with you, right? So successor state taken care of in 1757, Bengal, right? And second successor state, Awadh, military alliance 1765 after battle of Buxar, right? And third successor state, subordinate alliance, उसके अंदर भी military alliance होता है. Yes, so how do you create a buffer? And what do you mean by buffer? Buffer simply means that this is my core. This phone is my core. Around it, the cover is my buffer. As soon as my phone will come under attack, if it falls, the buffer will immediately protect my phone. So if you are my neighbor, and if I sign a military alliance with you, then my neighbor's neighbor, if he will try to take my territory, you will start fighting with him, right? Buffer is cushion between enemy and me. How you will act as cushion? What if you open your doors, right? What if Punjab and Afghanistan say, hey Russia, aja, please come, go, attack British. For that, to prevent that, Afghanistan and Punjab should be your friends, right? So that's why. So you create a buffer by signing military alliance, right? Second is policy of subordinate alliance, right? As I told you, in subordinate alliance, foreign policy is taken over by the British. So if I have your foreign policy with me, legally you cannot sign any treaty with any other Indian state. So I'm preventing this scenario that I have to fight multiple Indian states together, right? In fact, in subordinate alliance, you do not neutralize an enemy, you add a supporter also. Because now, after subordinate alliance, military I will maintain for you, and decision that where that military can be used, it is also with me. So subordinate alliance sign करना is not -1 कि एक enemy -1 हो गया, नहीं, आपका एक friend भी +1 हो गया, right? So as soon as subordinate alliance is signed with Hyderabad, then the military resources of Hyderabad, they are at disposal of company. So now after 1798, when company fights a war, it is not just EIC Army 1.0 will be fighting a war, but also EIC Army 2.0 of Hyderabad, right? So actually in 1799, मतलब 1798 onwards, books तो simply हमको ये बताती हैं कि जैसे books हमको बोलेंगी सेकेंड एंग्लो मराठा वॉर 1803-05, बट उस एंग्लो में पता है कौन कौन है? जिस भी स्टेट के साथ सबऑर्डिनेट अलायंस साइन किया है, that state is also at war with Marathas in 1803. So in the second Anglo-Maratha war, on one side you have EIC plus Gaikwad of Baroda, 1802 subordinate alliance, plus Peshwa, 1802 subordinate alliance, plus Hyderabad, 1798 subordinate alliance, plus Awadh, 1801 subordinate alliance. So my friends, if I take an economic perspective, then the economic resources of not just company, but also of Awadh, Hyderabad, Gaikwad, Peshwa, they are on one side versus Marathas. Right? That's diplomacy. Without annexation, you have taken over. Subordinate alliance is partial takeover of sovereignty. Subordinate alliance is you have taken the resources, control over military resources of a Indian state. It's an economic conquest. Territory will remain with him. Domestic sovereign functions will remain with the Indian ruler. But economically you are conquered. Militarily you are conquered. So there is partial loss of sovereignty. External sovereign functions with you, right? Dalhousie also implemented another policy which we call policy of paramountcy, and Dalhousie also signed subordinate alliances right? मतलब subordinate alliance उसने sign किए थे, मतलब he continued subordinate alliance. For example, if Hyderabad was not able to pay subsidy, so some territory called Berar was taken from Hyderabad in 1853, right? So subordinate alliance is kind of like continuing under Dalhousie, right? Khair, divide and rule between Indian powers. This I think I have already played, established DNR between Indian powers that is happening because of subordinate alliance. Divide and rule with respect to succession disputes and factionalism. Factionalism example I gave you, that when Peshwa is going and signing subordinate alliance, so that's factionalism. Gaikwad, he signed subordinate alliance in 1802, June 1802. Why? Because within the royal family there was a dispute that who should become the next Maratha Sardar. One of the side went to the British for help. British said, if you will sign subordinate alliance with me, then I will help you get to power. And British were militarily strong. So therefore, that side of the family accepted, and as a result, Gaikwad of Baroda was the first Maratha to be subordinated by British.
Get ready to conquer UPSC Prelims 2025 with a stronghold over current affairs. Enroll for the PT 365 program, a 20-day course offering comprehensive coverage of 1-year current affairs in 60 hours. This meticulously designed curriculum features daily sessions on important subjects relevant to the prelims examination. Starting offline from 9th January at 5 p.m., the highlights include complete coverage of current affairs from sources such as The Hindu, Indian Express, PIB, Economic Times, Yojana among others. Flexibility of class timing with access to live online classes for distance learning students. Access to Sandhan, a personalized prelims test series. Personalized assessment and feedback. Doubt clearing sessions and mentoring. Get on board to succeed in prelims with excellence in current affairs.
Subordinated is synonym of subsidiary. Like Amazon India is subordinate of Amazon US. Amazon India legally is a subsidiary of Amazon US, but maybe, most probably, right? So whenever you want to operate in another country, so you come out with a new company, but it will be a branch of your company only, that you call subsidiary, right? So subsidiary, subordinate, they are synonyms. So subsidiary lines, subordinate lines, they are synonyms. Difference between military alliance and subsidiary alliance is, simply look at the word. In military alliance, both partners are equal. Both partners have equal rights. कोई बड़ा नहीं होता, कोई छोटा नहीं होता. You may be a bigger power, but अधिकारों के फॉर्म में, rights के फॉर्म में आप बराबर हैं, right? But in subordinate alliance, there are two words: alliance and subordinate. Subordinate word tells that legal rights wise, one power is senior, another power is junior. The Indian ruler used to be junior, and why he used to be junior? Because he is losing external sovereign functions to the British. कानूनी तौर पे उसके कुछ जो अधिकार हैं वो खो रहा है हमेशा के लिए, अपनी मिलिट्री खो रहा है, अपनी फॉरेन पॉलिसी खो रहा है, तो वो जूनियर हो गया, राइट? डोमिनेशन में आ गया लीगली, राइट? सो बट जब महाराजा रणजीत सिंह के साथ 1809 में when alliance is being signed, so there Maharaja Ranjit Singh is not losing any sovereign function. It is an alliance between two equals. Military alliance. Subordinate alliance. In subordinate alliance, there is military alliance, plus external sovereign functions are taken over, plus your military we will maintain, plus kharcha for this military will be paid by you. That's called subsidy. We promise you that we will protect you from any internal revolt or any external attack. So on domestic sovereign functions and symbolic sovereignty, fine, you can have that, and we will protect you. Okay, na? So one power is subordinate, another power is superordinate. Yes. Yes, subordinate and subsidy the same thing. Right, so divide and rule was an important aspect. Succession disputes, I gave example of Gaikwad. Another example I can give you, for example, Awadh. In Awadh, what was the situation? In Awadh, the situation was that in 1797, Asaf ud-Dola died. And then Wazir Ali became Nawab. But he could stay in power only for 1 year. Because his uncle Sadat Ali Khan II, he went to the Britishers, said, if you remove my nephew and make me the Nawab of Awadh, then I'll increase the subsidy amount which is to be paid every year. Annual subscription hai wo. 76 lakh rupees I'll give you as subsidy. Awadh was paying subsidy since 1765. Awadh was paying subsidy since 1765. Under Treaty of Allahabad 1765, after Battle of Buxar 1764. Right? That we call a mini subordinate alliance or mini subsidy alliance. It was not proper subsidy alliance. Why? Foreign policy was not taken over. In 1765, foreign policy of Awadh was not taken over, but yes, military of East India Company was stationed, and that military was to be paid for by Awadh. So issue of subsidy had come, but foreign policy legally was still with Awadh after 1765. So subsidy 1765 से दे रहे हैं, कंपनी को लालच है, कंपनी को बोला if you remove my nephew, I'll give you 76 lakh rupees as subsidy. Company said why not? Okay. So that's how Sadat Ali Khan II became Nawab in 1798. But subsidy amount is very, very high. By 1801, the Nawab could not pay 76 lakh rupees. Then half of Awadh was annexed as permanent payment of subsidy. And a formal subordinate alliance was signed in 1801, whereby foreign policy was also taken over. So 1765 is not the year of Awadh subordinate alliance. 1801 is the year for Awadh subordinate alliance. In 1765, issue of subsidy has come, but foreign policy was not taken, so it is an incomplete subordinate alliance. It is not a complete subordinate alliance. It is a mini subordinate alliance, right? So therefore, had Chacha Bhatija not been divided, had there not been a succession dispute, then issue of 76 lakh rupees subsidy would not have been there. Had issue of 76 lakh rupees subsidy would not have been there, then default would not have been there. Had default not had been there, then subordination would not have been there under formal subordinate alliance in 1801. So root cause of subordinate alliance of Awadh is basically a succession dispute. Right? So therefore, had succession disputes not been there, then company, हमें तो अपनों ने लूटा गैरों में कहाँ दम था, हमारी कश्ती वहाँ डूबी जहाँ पानी कम था. Right? So had we not been divided, then the Britishers would not have been able to do all of these things. Right? Succession dispute. Right? So therefore, that is how the things are. Factionalism example I've already given you of Marathas. Okay. Military, EIC military was also very, very strong. So in general, European militaries were strong. Right, certain technological aspects were also there. I was reading this book Anarchy by William Dalrympe, where it is mentioned that this kind of a gun wreaked havoc on the Indian armies. And what was the gun? Such a small innovation was there, and the innovation was that a gun also be a sword? Right? Automatic rifle is not there at that point of time. So therefore, armies are firing at each other, reloading, again firing, and gradually moving close to each other. There will come such a point of time that you are there and I am here. Right? And now it is a matter of seconds. I fire, you also fire. Now you are reloading, but I, instead of reloading, now start using my bayonet, B-A-Y-O-N-E-T. ये जो चाकू होता है इसको bayonet कहते हैं, bayonet. And I kill you, stab you, right? And this small thing, right, it is said to have done great magic for British. Bayonet. Brown Bess musket, which was the gun before Enfield rifle, which is famous for 1857 revolt, right? So it is called New Enfield rifle. The older gun was Brown Bess musket. It had this bayonet. right? So it's very small things. There were multiple other things, but these kind of things, they also played a very important role. So one issue was technology, right? Second aspect, support of royal military. In 1757, because of the, actually, so from 1756 to 1763, from 1756 to 63, there was a world war called 7-year global war. Winston Churchill had said that the real First World War was not World War I. He said the real First World War was this 7-year global war. Global is synonym of world only, na? तो कुछ अलग भी नहीं कह रहा है. And what is a world war? Which is fought in different continents of the world and where all the important players are fighting, right? So therefore, yes, all of those criteria are met by the 7-year global war 1756-63. So therefore, British and French were fighting against each other everywhere. They fought in India also. In India, that war came to be known as Third Carnatic War, 1756-63. Now, when two states are fighting war, so therefore, armies of the state, they also fight, right? So therefore, in Third Carnatic War, what is the situation? English East India Company, army of English East India Company plus army of British state versus army of French East India Company plus army of French state, right? So therefore, royal military was present in India from 1756 to 1763, and around this point of time in 1757, Mir Jafar approached you that please remove Siraj-ud-Dowla and we'll give you huge amount of money. Robert Clive would not have had the confidence to go ahead and fight the Battle of Plassey had he not turned back and got the confidence that huge amount of royal military is also present. So just in case the things go south, just in case lot of soldiers of Bengal support Siraj-ud-Dowla and the battle becomes a big battle, तो backup plan तो होना चाहिए ना. वो तो खैर मीर जाफर कह रहा था that since I am the war commander of Bengal Subas, so therefore the army will follow my orders, they will not fight, right? So therefore बहुत easy रहेगा आपके लिए हराना. But what if they still fighting हो गई तो backup तो चाहिए. So therefore it was because of presence of the royal military, backup provided by the royal military, that Robert Clive accepted bribe given by Mir Jafar, right? So therefore, had royal military not been present in India, Battle of Plassey would not have happened. Had Battle of Plassey not have happened, empire building by company would not have started in India. And in 1857, people like you and me and all of you were nearly able to end the rule of the East India Company, 1857 revolt. October 1857, royal military arrived from Britain. So conquest began with the help of royal military, and conquest could not be overturned because of the royal military. That became the primary reason, right? So therefore that is also a very important reason. शुरुआत में कंपनी की आर्मी बहुत छोटी होती थी, 100-200 लोग होते थे, just under 200 people, right? It was later on through subordinate alliance that they are able to have free का money for free का army. Subsidy है ना, right? So therefore army became big majorly after 1798. And yes, from 1757 onwards, they are looting Bengal, so they have free ka money to have more army. So pre-1757, EIC army was not very great kind of army in terms of numbers, right? 100-200 people were there, right? So therefore, support of royal military was crucial for beginning of conquest. Second, EIC army. So as I told you that EIC army was better in certain things. Third, subordinate alliance. So because of subordinate alliance, you are able to have an army which is paid for by the Indian ruler, right? So without any expenditure, you are able to have a large army. So therefore, that is the key importance of subordinate alliance. The most important thing about subordinate alliance is that you are able to now have free of cost army with you, right? Now you tell me that if you are East India Company, right? So, and if you feel that you have to increase the size of your army, you will increase the size of army EIC army 1.0, or you will increase the size of EIC army 2.0. 2.0. Why? Because it is not paid for by East India Company. If you start increasing size of this army, your shareholders will punish you. They will say, हमारा dividend देने की बजाय army बना रहे हो, है ना? Why? नहीं ना, हमारा dividend को कोई loss नहीं होगा, right? So यहाँ तो subsidy है, right? That's why they continue to increasing subsidy. Every book of modern history says that East India Company continuously increased subsidy. एनसीईआरटी पढ़ लो, कुछ हो पढ़ लो, है ना। वो जो ये रंगीन किताब है, कौन सी किताब है ये वाली जो आपके पास है? स्पेक्ट्रम पढ़ लो, ठीक। तो कुंजी पढ़ लो, है? तो स्पेक्ट्रम पढ़ लो, उसमें लिखा होगा, ठीक है, कि ईआईसी कंटिन्यूड इंक्रीजिंग सब्सिडी, व्हाई? बिकॉज इट लीड्स टू फ्री आर्मी, राइट। सो मेजरली सबऑर्डिनेट अलायंस नहीं होता तो भारत का कॉन्क्वेस्ट नहीं होता। बिगेस्ट कॉन्ट्रीब्यूशन टू एम्पायर बिल्डिंग बाय ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी वाज बाय वेलेस्ले 1798-1805, because he brought the concept तो पहले आ गया था खैर, but एक नीति, a policy of subordinate alliance was brought by him. So therefore this played a very very important crucial role. And then you have better organization and technology, right? So which I have already elaborated upon, plus regular and better salary for sepoys. So उस time पे modern nationalism is not there, so therefore people are not actually fighting for their country, their ऐसा. So it's a job, right? So the person who pays better, who pays regularly, that person is able to have better quality of sepoys, better loyalty of sepoys. तो इस तरह से example, the one of the reason for British victory and French defeat in the third Carnatic War was that morale of the Indian sepoys and also French army men was down because salary was unpaid for months. And therefore, as a result, the third Carnatic War, 1756-63, एक कारण था, मैं ये नहीं कह रहा this is the only reason, right? So therefore, talent है, all of you are Indians, modern nationalism is not present, so therefore the person who is offering you better salary, so therefore better quality soldiers, sepoys, they will go there, right? So these are the reason. Economic strength of the East India Company, well, look at East India Company. East India Company by 1612, step number one, how East India Company is very very economically powerful. Small things are there, because without money you cannot fight war. So therefore the party which will be having great amount of economic strength, that party will be most probably winning the war, right? Most probably, unless you are Putin. See, other factors are also there, but the whole plan of US was that over a period of time, because we are economically very very powerful, because we have control of dollar, कितना ही छाप लो, घर में ही मशीन रखी हुई है पैसे की, right? So therefore we will economically drain out Russia. That's why they have a problem with India, that India buys Russian oil. They are not able to economically drain out Russia, right? So it's an economic war also. Any war is an economic war also. So why a company is powerful? This is why company is powerful. And why Britain as a इसको मुझे पहले लिखना चाहिए था, उसको बाद में लिखना चाहिए था, ठीक. That is point number 6 is why Britain as a country is economically powerful, and the first 5 points are why company is economically powerful. So why Britain as a country is economically powerful? Before industrial revolution, gradually it was Britain which had the largest empire, right? It had the largest empire, and therefore it was the country which has the largest trade. So a lot of profits they are earning by selling goods of the east to the rest of the world, that is rest of European countries. तो इंडिया से सामान खरीदेंगे और बाहर कहीं और बेच देंगे, ठीक है ना, तो प्रॉफिट कमाएंगे, तो लार्जेस्ट ट्रेडर. एंड देन दे वर फर्स्ट टू डू इंडस्ट्रियल रेवोल्यूशन फ्रॉम 1750 to 1850, and therefore as a result Britain as a country is like the economic superpower. It is the economic superpower. That is one thing. Capitalism was there, right? It first to develop proper capitalism, that is also here. If I think about how company is powerful, because company is a British entity but it is different from the British state. First of all, support of British state, because the state is very powerful. So therefore if state is with you, then well, the company went bankrupt in 1772, and then the company went to the British state with a katora, that like Pakistan goes to IMF and World Bank with a katora nowadays, right? So therefore company went to the British state with a katora that please help me out, otherwise मैं तो तबाह हो जाऊंगा, मैं तो बर्बाद हो ही चुका हूँ, ठीक है, I have defaulted on my loans, right? So therefore the state gave bailout package. Why state will be able to bail out? Because state itself is very, very powerful economically, right? So therefore support of state was also making company powerful. Then support of state was in this form also. For example, who had given the company that from Britain only one person can trade with rest of the east, can trade with the east, that is all lands to the right hand side of South Africa, that is called East Indies. Well, that was given by the state. Royal Charter was issued by Royal on 31st of December 1600, right? Had all the British people been allowed to trade with the rest of the to trade with the east, then one British entity would not have been economically super powerful, because only one entity from Britain can trade with India, China, Indonesia, and that entity is English East India Company. So of course that made English East India Company super rich, right? So therefore that is the second support which is given by the state. Then notice how they were able to ensure their monopoly over India's trade. That is, only I will buy products from India, only I will sell those products to the rest of the world. By 1612, Battle of Suwali, they are able to remove the Portuguese domination of international trade of India. In 1650s, they are able to defeat the Dutch in India. Indonesia came under Southeast Asia, dominated, its trade will be dominated by Dutch. South Asia, it will be dominated by English East India Company. Such was the result of this. So by 1650s, they are able to ensure that Dutch are also not a competitor with respect to purchasing Indian goods from Indians. French, they tried to threaten them. 3 Carnatic wars were fought: 1746-48, 1749-54, 1756-63. 3 Carnatic wars were fought, and ultimately by 1763 they are able to deal with the French threat to the international, trade of India, right? And then in 1799, Mysore, we all know that Hyder Ali and Tipu, especially Tipu, he wanted to dominate the international trade of South India. That is, I should be selling the South India's products to the rest of the world, not this company. So he set up a government company also, a PSU also, right, to compete with English East India Company. And that Mysore, which threatened the British trade in India, was also defeated by 1799 after the 4th Anglo-Mysore War, 1798-99. Right? So if you are able to deal with your competitors, right? Naturally, your money flow is going to continue. It is not going to get hurt, right? So this is related to trade. Then Plasi plunder. Plasi plunder, plunder means loot. Loot is always illegal. Income is always legal. That's why point number 3 and 4, they are two different points. Loot is always illegal. Income has legal basis, right? So Plasi plunder. After Battle of Plasi, the way treasury of Bengal was looted by the company from 1757 to 1765, it is known as Plasi plunder. So huge amount of money is looted. Like Bengal treasury is literally emptied. And Bengal was the richest Suba of India, richest province, right? So they are getting money from there. Earlier they used to require gold from Britain to buy the Indian goods. Gold is 4x. Whenever any country wants to buy goods from another country, the purchaser has to give 4x to the seller. So when Britishers, they want to buy goods from India, they have to bring in gold. Now after Plasi plunder, they did not require that anymore. You come empty pockets to Bengal, but you have a gun on the head of Nawab of Bengal, Mir Jafar. And you tell him, he opens the doors of the treasury where people of Bengal have paid taxes. He takes out huge amount of money, gives it to the East India Company. Now East India Company goes to people of Bengal, tells them, I want to buy cotton cloth, I want to buy spices, I want to buy some other products, and gives this money to you, and you give this product to company, and then East India Company take these products out of India, sells it to rest of Europeans, sells it to Britishers also, earns huge amount of profits, right? So overall what happened? You came to Bengal empty pockets, right? And you're earning huge profits. ये तो फ्री ऑफ कॉस्ट हो गया ना ट्रेड. इंडियंस के ही पैसे से इंडियंस का ही सामान खरीदा और प्रॉफिट तुम्हारा, राइट? सो देयरफॉर प्लासी प्लंडर इस तरीके से हेल्प किया. एंड सेम थिंग बिकेम लीगल वंस आफ्टर बैटल ऑफ बक्सर 1764, Treaty of Allahabad 1765 gave Diwani of Bengal, that is Finance Mantralaya of Bengal, to the company. And therefore now whatever taxes are being paid by people of Bengal Suba, that is Bengal region plus Bihar region plus Odisha region, those taxes are with company. It can do whatever it want to do with it, right? And new income. So two incomes were there of company, trade income and taxation income, right? So therefore, in fact, shares of the East India Company, they skyrocketed. Shares of the East India Company, they skyrocketed after Treaty of Allahabad 1765 because company got a new income. So therefore, this is how the company is extremely economically powerful, right? So therefore, if you have all of these things, then of course you will be able to do this, right? Now, this is a framework of this, right? If you have to write a 250-word answer, then whatever I have verbally said, those examples would have to be fed into each subpoint. Don't worry, many of these examples, these are total 19 pages. Elaboration in many of the cases is below, right? For example, 3 Carnatic Wars. Verbally, I have mentioned 3 Carnatic Wars, right? So what is the importance of these 3 Carnatic Wars? Importance is only one, right? But the importance is that it is being fought for the purposes of international trade of India. That whether French will dominate the international trade of India or whether British will dominate the international trade of India. So what was the reason? Britain-France rivalry for international trade of India. That was the reason. Then verbally I told you that see how 7-year global war. So because Britain and France are fighting globally, therefore they fought in India also. So second point is Britain-France global political rivalry. And third, Dupleix. Dupleix was like CEO of French East India Company in India from 1742 to 1754, right? So he also interfered in succession dispute in 1749 in Hyderabad and Carnatic. So therefore, when Dupleix supported one of the party, ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी, दैट इज इंग्लिश ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी, गॉट वरीड दैट अगर इसका चहेता नवाब बन गया हैदराबाद में, कर्नाटक में, तो वो तो सारे कॉन्ट्रैक्ट जो है फ्रेंच को ही दे देगा. सारे कॉन्ट्रैक्ट मतलब इट विल टेल दैट ब्रिटिशर्स यू कैन नॉट ट्रेड इन कर्नाटक, ब्रिटिशर्स यू कैन नॉट ट्रेड इन हैदराबाद, राइट, ओनली फ्रांस विल बाय गुड्स फ्रॉम हैदराबाद एंड कर्नाटक. तो मजबूरी में द इंग्लिश ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी ऑल्सो हैड टू सपोर्ट some other people from the royal family. So in Carnatic, it was Chanda Sahib who was supported by the French. Britishers, they supported MD Ali, Muhammad Ali, right? In Hyderabad, Muzaffar Jung was supported by the French. Britishers, they supported Nasir Jung, right? So therefore, this kind of issue, it is there. Khair, First Carnatic War, what was the reason? The Britain and France were fighting Austrian War of Succession in 1740-48 in Europe. And therefore they fought in India also, they fought in Americas also, right? So out of the 3 Carnatic Wars, पहली और तीसरी ऐसी है जहाँ पे कोई इंटरनेशनल इवेंट हो रहा है. फर्स्ट कार्नेटिक वॉर में ऑस्ट्रियन वॉर ऑफ सक्सेशन है, एंड थर्ड कार्नेटिक वॉर में 7 ईयर ग्लोबल वॉर है. ठीक है, तो फाइन, चलो ठीक है. तो वो रीजन हुआ. की हाईलाइट क्या थी? एज आई टोल्ड यू वर्बली, बैटल ऑफ अडियार 1746 वेयर 700 फ्रेंच ट्रेड सोल्जर्स दे डिफीटेड 10,000 स्ट्रॉन्ग इंडियन कैवलरी. ठीक है, दैट इज द ओनली इंपॉर्टेंस, उसके अलावा कुछ नहीं हुआ इसमें. ठीक. सेकंड कार्नेटिक वॉर, व्हाट वाज द रीजन? एज आई टोल्ड यू दैट डुप्लीग्स इंटरफेयर्ड इन सक्सेशन डिस्प्यूट, राइट. व्हाट वाज द रिजल्ट? रिजल्ट 50-50 था. दैट इज नाउ फ्रांस हैड इन्फ्लुएंस ओवर हैदराबाद because Salaba Jung was like puppet of France at the end of this, and Britishers, they had influence over Carnatic because Muhammad Ali was friend of British, right? तो 50-50 हो गया. Third Carnatic War 1756-63, what is the reason? International something is happening called 7 year global war. France lost, why? Due to superior British navy plus poor finances of France. As I verbally told you, soldiers were not paid salary for months, and France is relatively weak, right? Sepoys were unpaid for months. रिजल्ट क्या है? डिसाइसिव वॉज बैटल ऑफ वॉन्डिवॉश 1760, राइट. ब्रिटेन फ्रांस राइवलरी ओवर इंटरनेशनल ट्रेड ऑफ इंडिया, नॉट टेरिटरी. दीज वॉर्स आर नॉट फॉर टेरिटरी, राइट. दे वर वन बाय द ब्रिटिशर्स. ऑन द बोर्ड आई रोट डाउन 1612 पोर्चुगीज, 1650s डच, ऐसा. तो क्या है? 1612 पोर्चुगीज, 1763 फ्रांस, राइट. 1650s डच, and then last bit of presence of Dutch was also ended in South Asia in 1795. Right? So therefore, this is how the Britishers ultimately, you should link this event. British Royal Military arrived in India, giving confidence to East India Company to fight Battle of Plassey, after which East India Company began loot of Bengal, and with Indian money began maintaining a large EIC army that continuously grew in size, especially during Wednesday via subordinate lines. Anything which I have said verbally, it's here. Anything which I have said verbally, it's present here. Then how East India Company defeated and subordinated different Indian powers, right? इसमें बहुत सारा रिपीटेशन है, थोड़ा सा कुछ अलग है. क्या अलग है? If company was not set up, company is such an organization whose purpose is profit motive. State is such an organization whose purpose is territory motive, right? So therefore, ये कब हुआ कि companies did imperialism? उसके लिए 2 conditions required थे. A, company should have healthy finances because money is required to fight war. And second, such a person should be CEO of the company. Such a person should be CEO of the company in India. That is, such a person should be Governor General of East India Company in India. That person has personal ambitions of empire building. So whenever any empire builder was GG, plus whenever the finances of the company were good, it is then that wars took place. Robert Clive, 1757 to 60, right? Wars which are initiated by British. उनके ऊपर जो अटैक हुआ 1764 में, उसकी बात नहीं कर रहा मैं, बैटल ऑफ बक्सर, ठीक है, बट वॉर्स विच आर इनिशिएटेड बाय ब्रिटिश. रॉबर्ट क्लाइव 1757-60, वेलेस्ले 9805, that is 1798-1805. Then you have Francis Hastings 1813-23. Then you have Dalhousie 1848-56. Most of the wars, they are taking place in these time periods. Why? Because these people are personally empire builders, right? They have a personal desire. वेलेस्ले ने तो पूरा महल बनाया था बंगाल में अपने लिए, एक्स्ट्रा खर्चा करके, ठीक है. कंपनी शेयर होल्डर्स विल नॉट बी वेरी हैप्पी कि जो पैसा हमको डिविडेंड की फॉर्म में दिया जा सकता है तुम उसको अपना महल बना रहे हो. ही वांटेड टू फील लाइक अ नवाब इन इंडिया, वेलेस्ले, राइट. सो खैर, 2 conditions for empire building by East India Company: healthy finances. A sub-imperialist, that is an empire builder, is GG, right? So these two conditions are required. एक अच्छा सा टेबल बनाए जो कि कहते हैं दो स्टूडेंट्स हु हैव स्टडीड मॉडर्न हिस्ट्री from wherever, from vision or from wherever, you can benefit. That is on the left hand side, Indian power. In the middle, war defeat or subordination. क्या हुआ यहाँ पे, ठीक है ना, एंड व्हाट वाज द रीजन, ठीक है, इस तरीके से. और एक रीजन था जो कॉमन टू ऑल था, better military organization of Europeans. You can take it from Hyder Ali, modernizing organization with French help. Technology, like I've given you example of brown bess musket, that bayonet, right? Superior infantry, I've told you they had superior infantry. Superior navy, right? They had tactics like file firing. What do you mean by file firing? File firing is this, that is, it improves efficiency on the battlefield. File firing में ये होता है. So this is your brown bess musket. File firing, these are soldiers. These soldiers are under fire. The enemy is attacking them continuously. तितर बितर होने के चांसेस बहुत ज़्यादा हैं. बट जैसे ही तितर बितर हुए वापस से कमांडर कहेगा फाइल फॉर्मेशन, डोंट गिव अप फाइल फॉर्मेशन, राइट? जैसे हमें असेंबली में खड़ा किया जाता था, ठीक, वो पीटी टीचर सीटी बजाते थे, राइट, और फिर हम एकदम से लाइन में आ जाते थे, ठीक. नाउ दीज सोल्जर्स आर ट्रेन्ड दैट यू विल फायर लाइक दिस. Therefore the enemy here will feel as if rain of bullets is coming. They will feel as if rain of bullets is coming. This is file firing technique, right? So therefore discipline on the battlefield was important, right? Small things were there. Compass and a compass, right? So therefore they used to have, be it a cannon or be it a gun, they used to have such guns which can be fixed here, and then you tighten the screw, and then the soldier is just firing. As a result, great accuracy. Every next bullet, every next cannonball will fall exactly at that distance and with that precision. ठीक है, तो काफी बार ऐसा होता था that maybe some Indian army is firing cannon, वो जाके नदी में गिर गया गोला, ठीक है, और उनकी एक्यूरेसी बहुत सही है, एक आधा गोला इधर भी गिर रहा है तो दे कैन एडजस्ट लेफ्ट राइट. बहुत छोटी छोटी चीजें विच प्लेड अ वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट रोल, राइट. सो ये ऐसे कारण हैं विच आर कॉमन टू, मतलब एवरी थिंग. रेगुलर एंड बेटर पे टू सिपॉइज, गुड लीडर्स, तो ये दीज आर सच थिंग्स विच आर लाइक कॉमन विद रिस्पेक्ट टू, चाहे मराठास की बात करें, चाहे मैसूर की बात करें, यू टॉक अबाउट एनीवन, दीज आर लाइक इन जनरल गुड थिंग्स अबाउट ब्रिटिश मिलिट्री. Very soon we'll go on break. So Bengal, which was the battle took place? Plassey. What was the reason? Britain-France rivalry was there. Why? So थोड़ा सा स्टोरी में जाना पड़ेगा. स्टोरी कुछ नहीं, बस इतनी थी that in 1749, मतलब around 1751, there was a time when Dupleix was able to install Muzaffar Jung in Hyderabad and Chanda Sahib in Carnatic as Nawabs, and he was able to extract great benefits for personal use also and for French East India Company also. वो तो thank God from the British perspective, thank God that ultimately by 1754 British turned out to be victorious, right? But इनकी जान सूख गई थी, and they were like 60% of our trade takes place from Bengal. That is from India. If you are buying 100 rupees goods, then 60 rupees goods we buy from Bengal. And if Britishers are able to, if France tried to repeat what they did, in Carnatic, if they try to repeat that in Bengal, then what will happen to our profits? हम तो मर जाएंगे. Already in Battle of Adyar 1746, 700 French trained infantry have defeated 10,000 cavalry, Indian cavalry, Nawab of Carnatic की cavalry. ठीक, तो even if Nawab of Bengal tries to help British, he will not be able to help British. Proven by Battle of Adyar 1746. करना भी चाहेगा तो कुछ कर नहीं पाएगा फ्रांस के खिलाफ. तो we have to be आत्मनिर्भर, we have to be self-reliant, right? And therefore the Britishers, without taking any permission from Nawab of Bengal, started building additional fortifications, started increasing height of Fort Williams in Calcutta, started thickening the walls of Fort Williams in Calcutta. Now fort is a military structure. Fort is a military structure, and therefore if you are doing this work without permission of Nawab, it leads to conflict, right? Nawab did not give permission, but they still continued to build forts, fortification. right? So therefore, had there not been this rivalry between Nawab of Bengal and East India Company, probably had good relations been there between Nawab of Bengal and East India Company, तो Battle of Plassey शायद से नहीं होती. मीर जाफर आता कि I will give you some bribe, please remove Siraj-ud-Dौla. Company would have said, एक सेकंड, हेलो सीरज, ऐसा कह रहा है ना, बिकॉज यू वुड वांट, भाई तुम्हें छोटे लोगों से क्या हुआ है, यू वुड वांट ग्रेट रिलेशनशिप विद नवाब, बट बिकॉज सीरज वॉज ऑल्सो हेटेड बाय कंपनी, बिकॉज नवाब से भी इशू था, सो देयरफॉर योर प्लस मनी थिंग एंड ऐसा, ठीक है ना. सो हैड देयर नॉट बीन ब्रिटेन फ्रांस राइवलरी, they would not have started doing fortification of Fort Williams. Had they not done fortification of Fort Williams, Nawab versus British would not have been there. Nawab versus British would not have been there. ठीक है, तो फिर ये सब चीजें भी आगे शायद से फिर नहीं होती. खैर, एनीवेज, मतलब दैट्स लाइक लॉन्ग स्टोरी, इतना सब आप नहीं लिखोगे, बट आप सिंपली एग्जाम में लिखोगे भाई ब्रिटेन फ्रांस राइवलरी क्रिएटेड एंग्जाइटी अमंग ब्रिटिश विद रिस्पेक्ट टू देयर ट्रेड इन बंगाल, सो देयरफॉर दे एडेड फोर्टिफिकेशंस विदाउट परमिशन ऑफ नवाब ऑफ बंगाल. दैट कंट्रीब्यूटेड टू टेंशन. ऐसा कर दोगे. मिसयूज ऑफ दस्तक्स, all of you would have studied this in your modern university standard thing, that is company officials doing tax evasion, that is not paying taxes while company officials in their personal capacity purchase the Indian goods and they take out of India. The Royal Farman of 1717 given by Farooq Siyar, it gave right to duty free trade to company, not to company officials. Right? So when company officials in their personal capacity purchase Indian goods and they take the Indian goods out of India, and while taking these goods out of India, they claim that these goods are not theirs, these goods are of company, so that they don't have to pay duty, that is taxes, right? So therefore this resulted in conflict between Nawab of Bengal and company. फैक्शनलिज्म, हैड मीर जाफर नॉट अप्रोच क्लाइव, देन कुछ होता ही नहीं, तो फैक्शनलिज्म. एम्पायर बिल्डर करप्ट रॉबर्ट क्लाइव, ऐसा भी तो हो सकता था कि रॉबर्ट क्लाइव वाज नॉट करप्ट, ऑनेस्ट पर्सन, है ना. मीर जाफर विल कम, रॉबर्ट क्लाइव से रिश्वत, ऐसा भी तो हो सकता था, बट वैसा था नहीं. ठीक, तो एक तो वो एम्पायर बिल्डर है, दूसरा वो करप्ट है, राइट. सो व्हेन मीर जाफर इज कमिंग, ही इज लाइक, कब करना है अटैक. बाद में आया ना, पहले तो मीर जाफर आया था, फिर बैटल ऑफ प्लासी हुई थी. पहले मीर जाफर वॉर कमांडर था, उसने कहा मेरे नवाब को हटाओ और मुझे नवाब बनाओ, मैं तुमको पैसा दूंगा. फिर हुई बैटल ऑफ प्लासी, फिर मीर जाफर नवाब बना, पर अब वो पपेट था कंपनी का. ठीक है ना, तो ऐसा. सपोर्ट ऑफ रॉयल मिलिट्री विच आई ऑलरेडी टोल्ड यू, प्रेजेंट ड्यू टू 7 ईयर ग्लोबल वॉर और थर्ड कार्नेटिक वॉर वर्सेस फ्रेंच. ठीक. अवध के केस में इट वाज अ बैटल डिफीट, बैटल ऑफ बक्सर, राइट, विच रिजल्टेड इन साइनिंग ट्रीटी ऑफ इलाहाबाद 1765 विच वाज अ मिनी सबऑर्डिनेट अलायंस. ठीक है ना, तो वहाँ पे क्या कारण था यहाँ पे हारने का, टैक्टिकल मिस्टेक्स थी कुछ. ठीक है, दैट इज इंस्टेड ऑफ फॉलोइंग डिफेंसिव अप्रोच, एक्चुअली ब्रिटिशर्स दे वर देयर इन अ फोर्ट इन बक्सर, एंड प्लान शुड हैव आइडियली बीन टू सिंपली lay a siege and prevent entry of food and other things into the fort. Over a period of time, conditions of famine would have developed. Desperate British would have come out of the fort, and then you could have easily shot them down, right? But here they followed, here Shuja-ud-Dawla of Awadh, he followed aggressive policies rather than defensive policies. तो कुछ tactical mistakes थी, poor leadership of Shuja, plus military built from Plassey plunder. Since 1757, with the help of Bengal money, East India Company has strong military, right? So therefore, ऐसा. Hyderabad के case में, as I already told you, the event was not a war, but it was subordinate alliance of 1798. Why Hyderabad signed this subordinate alliance? Because fear of Marathas and Mysore was there. Then, with respect to Mysore, in the first two wars, no territory was lost by Mysore, but in the third and the fourth war, decent amount of territory was lost by Mysore. And then Wadiyar dynasty was brought back, एंड उसके साथ सबऑर्डिनेट अलायंस साइन कर दिया. मतलब इतना बड़ा मैसूर था तो उसका बहुत सारा टेरिटरी ले लिया, उसको छोटा सा बना दिया, और जो बच गया उसके साथ सबऑर्डिनेट अलायंस साइन कर लिया. तो ये तो इवेंट है, पता है. व्हाट वाज द रीजन? डिसयूनिटी बिटवीन इंडियन पावर्स, एज आई हैव ऑलरेडी टोल्ड यू मल्टीपल टाइम्स आज के लेक्चर में. मराठास इन हैदराबाद फॉट ऑन द साइड ऑफ ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी बिकॉज ओवर एम्बिशियस Mysore or over ambitious Tipu wanted to dominate whole of South India. So obviously Marathas, they do not want, Marathas भी तो वो state है ना, why will they want to lose their territory to Tipu, right? So ऐसा. एंड दूसरा था एम्पायर बिल्डर वेलेस्ले, तो वो भी चाहता था ऐसा कि कुछ एम्पायर बिल्डिंग हो सो दैट आई एम एबल टू टेक ओवर टेरिटरी. सो दे आर द रीजन. कार्नेटिक के केस में कार्नेटिक वॉज फ्रेंड because Muhammad Ali was brought to power in the third Carnatic War, in the second Carnatic War, 1749-54 by the British. Once he died in 1795, after that you have an empire builder Wellesley present, right, who wants to have some opportunity, right? So basically some revolts etc were taking place at this point of time. They accused the Nawab of maladministration, that you are a bad ruler, and they annexed Carnatic in 1801. तो ऐसा हुआ था यहाँ पे. तो अंडर इन्फ्लुएंस सिंस थर्ड कार्नेटिक वॉर, थर्ड नहीं, यहाँ पे मुझे सेकंड कार्नेटिक वॉर लिखना चाहिए था, खैर. अंडर इन्फ्लुएंस सिंस थर्ड कार्नेटिक वॉर एंड अनेक्स्ट 6 years आफ्टर डेथ ऑफ ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी फ्रेंड MD Ali, who died in 1795. Plus you have an empire builder who would want to seize any opportunity which comes his way. Travancore signed subordinate alliance. Travancore was also a friend because common enemy was Mysore. So East India Company was friendly with Travancore. Then in 1805, because of some reason, these people are not able to pay salary to the troops. Therefore, Travancore has to face a revolt by the troops. So Travancore goes to friend कि यार तू तो मेरा दोस्त है, हम साथ में लड़े हैं, कितना लड़े हैं अगेंस्ट हैदर अली 1766-69, मतलब वी हैव बीन फ्रेंड्स अगेंस्ट मैसूर, तो मेरा हेल्प कर यार, हेल्प मी आउट. Wellesley was a vulture, that is empire builder. उसने कहा हेल्प करूंगा, बट फर्स्ट यू हैव टू साइन सबऑर्डिनेट अलायंस. सो देयरफॉर व्हाटएवर अपॉर्चुनिटी इज कमिंग द वे ऑफ एम्पायर बिल्डर देयर, सो नीडेड हेल्प. तो ये सब यहाँ लिखा है, ठीक है. ये हो गया. उसके बाद आगे क्या, मराठास. गायकवाड़ का ऑलरेडी बता चुका हूँ मैं तुमको. सक्सेशन डिस्प्यूट था. वन साइड सेड प्लीज मेक मी नेक्स्ट गायकवाड़. दे सेड, एम्पायर बिल्डर सेड साइन सबऑर्डिनेट अलायंस. हो गया. पेशवा ऑलरेडी टोल्ड यू, फैक्शनलिज्म. सिंधिया के केस में इट वाज वॉर डिफीट. वंस द मराठास लॉस्ट सेकेंड एंग्लो मराठा वॉर 1803-05, so a lot of territory of Sindhia were annexed, and then Sindhia was also forced to sign subordinate alliance. So the reason here was military defeat, right? Plus in this war also there was some disunity between Holkar and Sindhia. Both were fighting on the same side, but थोड़ा सा rivalry था आपस में, so did not properly help each other. ऐसा when you go into details, ठीक. Then बचे हुए मराठास कौन है, मतलब होलकर, भोसले. पेशवा भी बचा हुआ है कि एनेक्सेशन तो अभी नहीं हुआ है. तो एक्चुअली वंस लॉट ऑफ वॉर्स हैपेंड अंडर वेलेस्ले. So from 1805 onwards, the Britishers, they said, now we don't want any war, because two conditions are required for empire building: healthy finances and Governor General should be an empire builder. So 1805 से लेकर from 1805 until your 1817, the Holkar and Bhosle, they had got time to rebuild their military. So they felt militarily confident, right? And then Peshwa, by the time period of 1817, was being treated as a puppet, even in the domestic sovereign functions. That means in the domestic sovereign functions, the British resident was interfering. कि पेशवा ऐसे कर ऐसे कर. पेशवा is like, come on, in treaty of subordinate alliance, only external sovereign functions I have given to you. Why are you interfering in my home mantralaya? Why are you interfering in my budget? Why are you interfering in my infrastructure and other things? Right? They're like, military उन्हीं के पास है. So Peshwa is frustrated. He talks to Holkar and Bhosle कि भाई ये क्या मुसीबत पाल दी हमने, कुछ करते हैं, right? And therefore the third Anglo-Maratha War 1817-19 began. ठीक. Now after this also, you know, things could have stabilized, मतलब in the sense कि after this very harsh actions are being taken by Francis Hastings. एक तो why internal interference was being done in the domestic sovereign functions for Peshwa, because Francis Hastings was an empire builder, right? So he was over interfering, मतलब he was, you know, interfering in the domestic sovereign function also. And दूसरे बात उसका एक्शन देखो, क्योंकि वो एम्पायर बिल्डर है, तो वो ऐसा भी तो कर सकता ना कि बाजीराव 2 को हटा के किसी और को पेशवा बना देता. बट बिकॉज वो एम्पायर बिल्डर है, तो आफ्टर डिफीटिंग Marathas here, he decided to annex whole of Maharashtra. Whole of Maharashtra matlab the Swarajya, the left wala part, right, the core. ठीक है, तो इस तरीके से पेशवाशिप वॉज अबॉलिश्ड. वेरी हार्श डिसीजन इज बीइंग टेकन बाय बिकॉज ही इज अ एम्पायर बिल्डर. ठीक है ना, तो बहुत कठोर इन्होंने किया. लॉट ऑफ टेरिटरी ऑफ होलकर एंड भोसले वॉज ऑल्सो टेकन, right, and then both of them were also made to sign subordinate alliance. Why? Because war defeat is there. So that is what is actually like written here. Rajput, Jats, Bundelas, Rohillas, subordinate alliance was signed with them after the East India Company established as the bigger power in the region. So till yesterday we were paying, Chauth and Sardesh Mukhi to Marathas. Marathas ko to main hara diya. Now you sign subordinate alliance with me, right? So they were not fighting the Second Anglo-Maratha War. So earlier paid tributes to Marathas, now Marathas replaced by new power East India Company, which forced them to sign subordinate alliance. And this is being done. Why? Because there is a personality who wants to do this. That is empire builder Wellesley. Sikh ke case mein, so till the point of time Maharaja Ranjit Singh was there, so policy of ring fence was working. That is, you have a strong friend at the borders. But after Maharaja Ranjit Singh died in 1839, a lot of succession disputes, political murders were taking place in Sikh, right? So Britishers, they always wanted a very stable, strong borders, right? So either they wanted a strong friend at the border, like Maharaja Ranjit Singh, or they wanted to be present themselves either indirectly or directly. Indirectly mane ki, I'm behind the scene, you are the ruler in Afghanistan, but you are my puppet. Right? Directly means I will do annexation. So in the first Anglo-Sikh War of 1845, 44-45, they established indirect rule. Right? A British resident was stationed who will start controlling things. Right? He will stay behind the scene, but he'll the real player. And then when some Sikh governors revolted, so Dalhousie, after fighting the Second Anglo-Sikh War of 1845, annexed. 1849 annexed Punjab. So, policy of ring fence needs strong friend to act as buffer around British India. Factionism after Maharaja Ranjit Singh weakened border Sikh state. EIC was afraid of Russia attacking via Afghanistan. Afghanistan, your Russia, Afghanistan, Punjab, ऐसा है ना. तो Second Anglo-Sikh War, empire builder Dalhousie got his opportunity when two Sikh governors revolted, so therefore he annexed. Right? So therefore this is how this table it can help you out. Like एक summarized version एक आ गया है कि अच्छा ठीक है ऐसे ऐसे सारे का सारा चीज़ हुआ. ठीक है, पॉलिसीज में बहुत सिंपल भी बता देता हूँ, उसके बाद ब्रेक के बाद दूसरा वाला देखेंगे. तो या फिर इसको ब्रेक के बाद ही देखते हैं, बहुत टाइम हो गया 45 ओके, तो आइडियली 2:30 पे देना चाहिए ब्रेक. ठीक है, तो विल मीट आफ्टर ब्रेक ऑफ 10-12 मिनट्स. तो ये टॉपिक नियरली ओवर है, बस ये पॉलिसीज वाला एक एस्पेक्ट रहता है जो कि कठिन माना जाता है यूजली. तो इसलिए आई थॉट दैट आई विल इंक्लूड इट, एंड इट इज़ अ वेरी गुड फ्यूचर ईयर क्वेश्चन बिकॉज मोस्ट ऑफ द स्टूडेंट्स विल फेस हर्डल इन आंसरिंग दिस क्वेश्चन. सो विल डिस्कस दिस, एंड आफ्टर दिस वी आर गोइंग टू बिगिन विद द इकोनॉमिक इम्पैक्ट ऑफ द ब्रिटिश रूल ऑन इंडिया. ठीक है ना, जो कि कुछ तो हम ऑलरेडी डिस्कस कर चुके हैं थोड़ा सा, जैसे मैंने आपको प्लासी प्लंडर के बारे में बताया. ठीक है ना, तो बाकी लैंड रेवेन्यू सिस्टम्स भी रिवाइज करेंगे फिर. ठीक है.
Get on the right track to commence your journey for the UPSC Prelims 2025 with the Fast Track course. An effective strategy will not only lead you to succeed in the prelims, but is also your launch pad to proceed to the mains. Starting from 19th November at 1 p.m., enroll to transform your journey with coverage of GS Prelims syllabus, regular practice, performance assessment and feedback, dedicated mentorship and guidance. How will the program help you? Result-oriented preparation in GS and current affairs, efficient time and resource management, development of problem-solving skills, motivation, confidence building and enhanced exam readiness.
तो एक्चुअली आइडियली हमको पॉलिसी सबसे पहले करनी चाहिए. ठीक है ना, बट क्योंकि यूजुअली बुक्स उस तरीके से लिखी नहीं गई हैं, सो दैट्स वाई वी आर ऑल्सो डूइंग पॉलिसीज एट द एंड. तो नो इशूज. पॉलिसी, व्हेन यू से समथिंग इज अ पॉलिसी, व्हेन यू आर एबल टू, या तो रिटन पॉलिसी हो, इधर देयर इज अ रिटन पॉलिसी, और व्हेन यू आर एबल टू डिसिफर अ पैटर्न, राइट, देन यू से दैट ओके इट मस्ट बी डन बाय अ पॉलिसी. राइट, so fine, we can do policy later on also. We see a pattern. So, what were the policies of the British towards the Indian states? And when we say British, we include East India Company as well as the British state, right? So initially there was this policy of relative isolation. That was followed from 1757 to 1813. What do you mean by isolation? The company said we are a private organization, and purpose of private organization is profit motive. We are not a state. We have not come to India for territory. We have come to India for purchase of Indian products, right? So we don't have to bother ourselves that who is king where, right? Who is Indian ruler? What is the successor state? हमें कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता. Just that our business should not be hurt, right? So therefore they stayed isolated from the Indian political affairs. Second reason to stay isolated was also this, that as it is said in English, that give power to someone to test that person's real character. So at this point of time, company was like a majboor sharif. That means it also did not have that kind of military that it could fight and defeat the Indian states, all the Indian states, or so it was not militarily that confident also. So therefore it followed relative isolation policy, right? ऐसा छोटी मोटी आर्मी उनकी 200 people, 500 people, ठीक है? But from 1757, Battle of Plassey onwards, their army started rising. But still, they are not that militarily powerful. Proof hai. For example, the first Anglo-Maratha war, they are losing. 1775-82. That means even in 1775, they were not that powerful that they can defeat Marathas. Right? Then, Battle of Buxar 1764 was a very closely fought battle. वो तो Shuja'ud-Dawla followed aggressive policies, right? Otherwise, and that also, there also, if you read, certain books, novels वगैरह पढ़ते हैं, तो उसमें एक time आया था where Indian side was victorious. वो तो last charge was done by Hector Munro. तो मतलब बहुत closely fought fight, ऐसा. तो fine, we get to know that okay, why East India Company will not be militarily that confident, and that's why they are saying कि भाई, where our primary purpose is here to do business, not anything else, right? Therefore, they stayed isolated. But this isolation was relative. Relative is different from absolute isolation. That means in certain cases, they can interfere. In which cases? We are here for trade. So therefore, if someone provides us opportunity to expand our trade, or if someone hurts our trade, then we will fight. For example, Tipu, 1782-99, and before him, his father, Hyder Ali, 1761-82, they wanted to dominate trade of South India. So Britishers did fight before 1813, the 4 Anglo-Mysore wars, right? French, they wanted to threaten the British trade. So 3 Carnatic wars were fought from 1746 to 63, right? Although they were not fought for political matters, but trade. Even before 1757, because we are taking a territory perspective, that's why we have mentioned 1757. Otherwise, is not the British East India Company fighting the Dutch, right? 1650s, fighting the Portuguese, 1612. Why? Because their trade is under threat from these actors. Similarly, Raghunath Rao, 1773-74, he was removed from Peshwaship by Nana Fadnavis. Nana Fadnavis did not become Peshwa, but ऐसा remove किया उनको to take revenge of murder of previous Peshwa, Narayan Rao. Then Raghunath Rao went to British in Bombay, East India Company in Bombay, told them that I will give you Salsatte and Basim, which are very close to Bombay, and therefore you will be able to have more territory to establish warehouses, that is factories. Opportunity is coming. That is why the governor of Bombay Presidency signed the Treaty of Surat in 1775 and therefore began the first Anglo-Maratha war. What was the purpose? Purpose was that we will reinstall Raghunath Rao as Peshwa. Right? So they are getting interested in Indian politics because trade opportunity. Right? So therefore, this isolation is not absolute isolation. This isolation is relative isolation. Right? Then to protect their trade interest, they are also signing military alliances. 1809, Treaty of Amritsar, signed with Maharaja Ranjit Singh. If Russians attack by Afghanistan, then our business can get hurt in India, right? Similarly, 1765 Treaty of Allahabad, they signed mini subordinate alliance with Awadh. Mini subordinate alliance also included a military alliance. Foreign policy नहीं ली गई थी, but otherwise there was a military alliance with Awadh and East India Company. Why? So that just in case if someone tries to hurt us in Bengal, where we have a lot of business, then Awadh will fight on our side, right? So military alliances, they are done usually by states, not by a company. So therefore this isolation was a relative isolation. It was not like an absolute isolation, right? That's the thought process, right? Similarly, in 1757, they were provided a money opportunity by Mir Jafar. Why do the Britishers care that whether Mir Jafar is Nawab of Bengal or Siraj-ud-Dowla is Nawab of Bengal? Because Mir Jafar offered huge amount of money. Therefore, they fought Battle of Plassey. So therefore, A, they are signing military alliances. B, they are interfering in succession disputes. C, they are fighting wars. These three things we are able to discern. And when they are doing so, either when there is a business opportunity, money opportunity, or their money is under threat. Otherwise, they don't care, right? So this is policy of relative isolation. Then second is policy of indirect rule. What do you mean by indirect rule? Face of the rule will not be company. Face of the rule will be Indian ruler. But there will be a British ambassador or British resident who will be present in the cabinet of the Indian ruler, and he will pull strings from behind the scene and therefore establish indirect rule of East India Company in that particular Indian state, right? Notice indirectness. Because they are a company, so therefore they are hesitant that we should not become like the state, right? So khair, policy of indirect rule, British resident plus a puppet Nawab plus the British resident controls the Nawab with respect to ruling the Indian state, that is with respect to handling of external sovereign functions and handling of domestic sovereign functions. Example, this was done in Bengal from 1765 onwards. Under the Treaty of Allahabad 1765, a British resident was stationed who in a span of 7 years by 1772 established practically the rule of British resident. So Nawab had become like a powerless governor or a powerless president. The real rule by 1772 was of East India Company. Similarly, under the Treaty of Allahabad 1765, there was a clause that a British resident can be stationed. Now it is upon the British interest how quickly they establish indirect rule. Books, they say that in the case of Bengal, indirect rule was established within 7 years, but in the case of Awadh, it was established in 90 years. Books, they mention that by 1855, Nawab was a puppet and the real ruler was British resident, and British resident was also holding his own darbar by 1855. तो वो उनके इंटरेस्ट के ऊपर है कि वो उस काम को कितना स्पीडीली करते हैं, right? How much interference is done by the British resident. In Travancore also, in 1805, Travancore signed subordinate alliance because they required help from British because the troops had revolted. By 1809, that is within the span of 4 years, they had established their indirect rule, right? So in 1809, Diwan Velu Thampi revolted because British resident is hurting the power of Indian Prime Minister. In Travancore, Diwan means Prime Minister. So King is there, his Prime Minister is there. Now British resident, if he establishes indirect rule, तो उसने सबसे ज़्यादा किसको hurt किया? दीवान को. तो दीवान वेलू थम्पी revolted. The revolt was crushed, right? So Travancore. Similarly, in the 6th state, 2 Anglo-Sikh wars took place, 1845 and 1849. In 1845, as such an empire builder is not present. Dalhousie comes in 1848. So in first Anglo-Sikh war of 1845, what did they establish? They stationed a British resident. Maharaja Dilip Singh was just 5 years of age, and actual ruler was British resident only. Right. So therefore, these are examples where they established indirect rule. Third policy which they followed was policy of ring fence, which we have already discussed. Establishing buffer around British India by signing military alliances with neighbors, so that if anyone tries to attack British India, the neighbors will also fight in favor of Britishers. So with Awadh in Treaty of Allahabad 1765, with Mysore in Treaty of Madras 1766, with Marathas in Treaty of Salway 1782, with Sikh in Treaty of Amritsar 1809, and this is mainly associated with Warren Hastings. He was the person. Then policy of subordinate alliance associated with LSL. तो इसमें क्या होता था, वही होता था कि foreign policy of the Indian state will be taken, basically external sovereign functions of the Indian state will be taken, right, and rest will remain all right with the Indian ruler, right. So promise that will not interfere in the internal affairs means will not interfere in the domestic sovereign functions. You will stay as Nawab, that is, will respect your sovereignty, and we will also protect you from any peasant revolts internally which try to overthrow you, or anyone else who tries to overthrow you. And also if anyone attacks you, then we are there, right. So these were the rights of these three were the rights of the Indian ruler. Rest everything they took, right, by taking over foreign policy, military. Impact of subsidy lines kya hai? First impact was loss of jobs for the military men, because EIC army will be stationed. So therefore those who are sepoys of the previous army, they will lose a job, at least for the timing they will lose. East India Company may re-recruit them, right. But East India Company भी क्या कहता था, अगर आप बंगाल के हो तो आप बंगाल की मिलिट्री में नहीं होगे, आप अपना घर बार सामान उठाओ, कहीं और जाके सर्व करो. Not everyone will be able to do that. तभी तो मंगल पांडे of UP was present in Bengal army in 1857 revolt, right. So therefore अब हर कोई तो नहीं जाएगा अपना घर छोड़ के. खैर, definitely there was loss of job for senior military commanders. Mansabdar were military generals, right. So military commander to will be only British, captain, major and above will be only British. So therefore loss of job for military men. That was the first impact. Second impact, now EIC could maintain large army at expense of Indian states. This I have already explained, EIC army 2.0. Third point, drain of wealth, right. So therefore that money which is paid as subsidy to maintain randomly large army, matlab imagine that huge amount of money is being demanded from the Indian Nawab that we are maintaining army for you, give me 76 lakh rupees. The Indian Nawab may be like कि भाई कोई न्यूक्लियर अटैक होने वाला है क्या मेरे ऊपर, किस लिए चाहिए इतनी आर्मी, क्या चाहिए, right. So that money could have been used for welfare of the people. To pay that high amount of subsidy, Indian Nawab has to apply high taxes. As a result, chances of peasant revolts will be there. Example, it is mentioned that by 1856, there were chances of peasant revolts in Awadh. And then the Britishers are accusing the Indian Nawab that you are a bad ruler. Why am I a bad ruler? देखो peasant revolt करना चाह रहे हैं. But revolt तो इसलिए करना चाह रहे हैं because taxes are high, and taxes are high because your subsidy is high. But British are like, repeat after me. Like क्या? I am a bad ruler. क्या कर सकते? And on grounds of maladministration, for example, in 1801 Carnatic is annexed, and in 1856 Awadh is annexed. Indirect rule of East India Company. In many of the cases, they did interfere. Although promise was there that we will not interfere in internal affairs, but in many of the cases they did interfere. Travancore, 1805 signed subordinate alliance, and by 1809 they are establishing their indirect rule. गलत किया ना? वादा किया था will not interfere, but in reality are interfering, right. Similarly the case of Awadh, right. So therefore that is what they are doing. Territory as payment of subsidy. At जैसे 70 to pay 76 lakh rupees, half of Awadh is annexed. Hyderabad could not pay subsidy. Finally in 1853, so territory called Birar was annexed. So therefore we are losing territory also because of this subordinate alliance. That is also impact. Indian states lost power to make alliance against East India Company because foreign policy is now with the East India Company. That means foreign minister हमेशा company का होगा. So how can you enter into any alliance with your neighbors? So basically, once you are signing subordinate alliance, then you are ensuring that this particular Indian state will not be able to sign any alliance with any other Indian state, right? So as I told you, that once you sign subordinate alliance, it is -1 enemy and +1 a friend also, right? As this kind of scenario. These are the examples that in which year subordinate alliance was signed with which of the Indian state. 1798 Hyderabad, 1799 मैसूर, 1801 अवध, 1802 गायकवाड़, 1802 पेशवा, 1803 से 05 के बीच में सिंधिया, जाट्स, राजपूत, बंदेला, रोहिल्लास, 1805 ट्रैवनकोर, होलकर एंड भोसले आफ्टर डिफीटिंग थर्ड एंग्लो मराठा वॉर। तो एक जगह हमने लाके रख दिए सारे सबऑर्डिनेट लाइंस। There can be a question, future a question. Clive began EIC's military influence and Wellesley made it reach its peak. So basically the question is majorly about how after Battle of Plassey 1757, with the help of Plassey plunder, the company got a lot of money to establish a big military. How after Battle of Plassey, Bengal was brought under company domination politically and militarily, right? And then you also talk about that how Robert Clive also signed Treaty of Allahabad 1765. How therefore Awadh is signing military mini subordinate alliance, right? ऐसा. How Robert Clive therefore by getting Diwani of Bengal is also ensuring second new income for company, and with that income you can maintain very large army. And then you come towards Wellesley and talk about subordinate alliance. Highlight EIC Army 1.0, 2.0, that how free of cost now you can maintain a large army. And how there is a military alliance also with that Indian state. How that Indian state cannot fight militarily against you because A, it does not have military, B, it has lost foreign policy also to you. So therefore this question is about basically 1757, 1765 and subordinate alliance. Okay? So this is how you can answer. Next policy was policy of subordinate isolation, which is also known as policy of paramountcy. It was started in 1813. It stayed till 1858 because the rule of company is till 1858, and it was initiated by Francis Hastings, who was there from 1813 to 1823. Actually, in it's very simple. बहुत simple है. It is basically subordinate alliance minus rights of Indian rulers. This policy is nothing but subordinate alliance minus rights of Indian rulers. Look at subordinate alliance. EIC to take over, EIC to have a military alliance, that is junior alliance partner, and EIC to take over foreign policy and military, right? And payment of subsidy. 4.1, 4.2, 4.3 are three rights which are there with the Indian ruler, right? They are now saying if British interest demands so, then we will infringe these three rights. पहले वो लीगली इंटरफेयर करते थे इंटरनल अफेयर्स में, अब छाती चौड़ी करके कह रहे हैं करेंगे. दैट इज द डिफरेंस. इफ EIC इंटरेस्ट डिमांड सो, देन वी विल इंटरफेयर इन इंटरनल अफेयर्स, देन वी विल even take over your territory. Like after 1813, Third Anglo-Maratha War took place. So in after the Third Anglo-Maratha War in 1818, during the Third Anglo-Maratha War, they annexed Maharashtra. Why? Because हिम्मत कैसे होगी पेशवा की कि will try to revolt against us. What was the reason for this? Actually now they were militarily confident. Because of the subordinate alliance, they had established decent amount of military with them, right? So therefore that's why they were militarily confident. So they said that among all the states which are present in India, the number one state is East India Company. It is supreme, and interest of East India Company will be paramount. And if those interests are at stake, then Indian states will not have any rights, and we may interfere internally, or we may even annex the Indian states if it is required, right? So at least they used to promise certain rights to the Indians in policy of subordinate alliance. But this line that to protect these interests, we will ऐसा verbally बोलना, that thing it was not there. So therefore from 1813, Indian states were to have no rights if British interest demanded so, right? So इसका ये meaning है actually, ठीक है ना? पहले भी नहीं होते थे ये अधिकार, बट एटलीस्ट वर्बली ऐसा ये लोग नहीं कहते थे. वर्बली ये लोग कहते थे कि भाई विल नॉट टेक ओवर योर सोवरेनिटी, विल नॉट इंटरफेयर, और जो काम करते थे फिर वो इलीगली होता था. अब तो वर्बली भी वो कह रहे हैं. जैसे वर्बली अभी इंडिया क्या कहती है, दैट वी विल नॉट इंटरफेयर इन अदर कंट्रीज इंटरनल अफेयर्स, ठीक. बट टुमारो इफ इंडिया बिकम सुपर पावर, मे बी, अब ऐसा थोड़ी कि अभी इंडिया करती नहीं, क्या पता करती हो, हमें क्या पता ना, अपने नेशनल इंटरेस्ट को प्रोटेक्ट करने के लिए, ठीक है, हर देश को न्यूज करता ही है, तो क्या पता करती हो, ठीक है. आजकल ऐसा चला हुआ है कुछ अननोन मैन वगैरह, ठीक है, तो खैर अननोन है तो हमें भी नहीं पता क्या है, ये मतलब ऐसा रूमर है, कभी कभी सुनाई में आता है, कोई कोई कह देता है ऐसा कि शायद से इंडिया कोई कुछ बार बार करती होगी, तो करती पता नहीं, हमें तो पता नहीं, ठीक है, ऐसे मिल है. बट टुमारो इफ इंडिया बिकम सुपर पावर, then we may say that wherever human rights are under threat, we will interfere. Wherever Indian citizens are under threat, we will interfere. US ऐसे ही तो बोलता है. Does not matter to US that whether a particular person is a terrorist. What only matters to US is that person is US citizen. And how dare any other country for its national interest can target US citizen. जेम्स बॉन्ड की मूवीज देख लो, ग्लोरीफाई किया जाता है एक्सटर्नल इंटरफेरेंस को. एक्सटर्नल इंटरफेरेंस बाय यूएस इज ग्लोरीफाइड बाय हॉलीवुड, दैट जेम्स बॉन्ड इज ऑन अ मिशन इन अ फॉरेन कंट्री, eliminating targets. Why? Because US is superpower. So when policy of relative isolation was there, East India Company was not biggest power in India. But from 1813, by 1813, they are the biggest power. ठीक है ना. तो अब वर्बली भी वो लोग कह रहे हैं कि वी विल इंटरफेयर. समझ लो डिफरेंस. दैट्स द डिफरेंस. When Bajirao II, that is second. In third, though, he is revolting against company in his individual capacity. You are confusing second and third Anglo-Maratha war. What you are describing is second Anglo-Maratha war. वही मैं कह रहा हूं, as a policy it is not being done. On need basis it may be done. Marathas they can say, by this is a matter of diplomacy. Marathas they can say that we recognize Peshwa Bajirao II as a legitimate Peshwa, and that Peshwa is asking for help. So therefore, if you're ready to sign subordinate alliance, then we will help you, right? So therefore, whenever an empire builder is present, so that is a matter of exception, okay? And from 1798, what is your policy? Your policy of subordinate alliance, right? So if policy of subordinate alliance is there, and if opportunity is there that someone can sign subordinate alliance, then Wellesley will make him sign subordinate alliance. तो पेशवा ने नॉक किया, नॉक. वेलेस्ले तो नहीं गया था, पेशवा ने नॉक किया, अपॉर्चुनिटी प्रोवाइड करी, प्लीज मेक मी पेशवा, बताओ मैं आपके लिए क्या कर सकता हूं. दे डिमांडेड कि तू सबऑर्डिनेट अलायंस साइन कर ले, ठीक है. तो वंस, सो इन अ वे अ डिजायर फॉर आइसोलेशन इज देयर, यू नो, इन जनरल, बट वंस एम्पायर बिल्डर विल बी देयर, ही विल वांट टू इंटरफेयर, especially when someone knocks on your door and provides you opportunity for interference. And वो भी interference वो ऐसे justify कर सकते हैं कि भाई हमने खुद जाके किसी और को तो पेशवा नहीं बनाया, जो पेशवा थे उन्होंने हमसे मदद मांगी, तो ऐसे वो justify कर सकते हैं उसको, ठीक है. तो जब कोई पॉलिसी होती है तो exceptions to policy होते हैं. जब भी कोई पॉलिसी होती है तो एक्सेप्शंस टू पॉलिसी भी होते हैं. ऐसा इट्स नॉट ट्रू दैट अ पॉलिसी इज फॉलोड 100% ऑल द टाइम, बट इफ अ पर्टिकुलर पॉलिसी इज फॉलोड, लेट्स से 80 times or 70 times out of 100, then we say that okay, there is a policy, ठीक है ना. So if opportunity is provided or if their interest comes under threat, तो even before 1798 they are ready to interfere in favor of Raghunath Rao, ठीक है ना. तो बट बाय डिफॉल्ट पोजीशन ये है व्हेन पॉलिसी ऑफ रिलेटिव आइसोलेशन इज फेयर. वो तो कोई एम्पायर बिल्डर है या फिर कोई अपॉर्चुनिटी या थ्रेट लेके आ रहा है, तब वो इंटरफेयर कर रहा है। अब 1813 में तो ये कह रहे हैं कि अगर मेरे इंटरेस्ट इतने से भी हर्ट हुए तो हम कुछ भी करेंगे, ऐसा मतलब बोल रहे हैं, ठीक है ना। पहले कम से कम वर्बली बोलते थे कि नहीं नहीं हमें क्या करना, आपका अंदरूनी मसला है, ब्रॉडली ऐसा कहते थे, ठीक है। लास्ट इज पॉलिसी ऑफ सबऑर्डिनेट यूनियन 1858-1947। इसमें कुछ नहीं है, सिंबॉलिक सॉवरेनिटी इज नाउ टेकन ओवर। अभी तक क्या होता था, सिंबॉलिक सॉवरेनिटी वाज विद इंडियन रूलर, let's say subordinate alliance has been signed with the Indian ruler, so legally symbolic sovereignty is with Indian ruler, external sovereign functions are with British East India Company, and domestic sovereign functions are with Indian ruler. Now here in 1858 they took away symbolic sovereignty, so now from 1858 they have symbolic sovereignty, that is Queen Victoria will become everyone's queen. They have defense, communication, foreign affairs. Domestic sovereign functions, they are with Indian ruler, Indian prince, Indian princely state. So this is called legal relationship of paramountcy. Paramountcy as a legal relationship is different, and you should not confuse it with policy of paramountcy. Clear बता देता हूँ, policy of paramountcy was of East India Company. This legal relationship does not has East India Company in it. This legal relationship of paramountcy, it is between British Crown and the Indian Prince. तो शब्द चाहे सेम हो, paramountcy, परंतु इशू टोटली डिफरेंट है, ठीक है ना। तो दैट्स द थॉट।